So I've been using and searching for the most useful tools that are available that just about nobody knows about. I've tested all these tools and I wanted to make sure that these were worth bringing to your attention. And after using all of these, I'm very confident that this is gonna be a great list for homeowners, DIYers, professionals, and if you're trying to shop for somebody, you're gonna see some things in here that you've never seen before. So let's go ahead and jump right in. All right, so first up on our list of tools that you probably haven't seen, but definitely should know about, comes down to this wristband right here. All right, so what makes this wristband special? And how in the world is a wristband a tool? Well, it's how it assists you when you're doing projects. So just like any other wristband, obviously it goes on the wrist, so we just take the Velcro off, and I'll just really quickly put this on, all right, just like that. Well, what makes this awesome and why I use this so often, and this one is clearly not new because I've used it so much, this wristband has magnets all the way around it. And what you can do with that is if you're doing a project that requires a lot of nails or screws, you know how annoying it is that every time you need one, you either gotta carry it in your other hand like this, put them in your pocket, they end up stabbing your leg, or you just keep having to go back to the box and moving it around wherever you're going. Well, with this, all you have to do is take a handful of screws, put it on your wristband, and they all just stick to the wristband, ready for you whenever you need that next screw. Now, this is just one small handful, but you can cover the entire wristband all the way around with screws. I have filled this thing to the max in projects in the past, so this one's pretty self-explanatory. I really can't recommend this one enough. Again, I've used it in so many projects in the past. It saves me so much time, so much hassle, and in my opinion, they're worth every penny of the pretty low cost that they are. And before we get into the next tools, since this one was so short, just as a reminder and for your convenience, I will have links to everything you're gonna see in this video down in the description down below so that you can click on those and you can check out each of these tools for yourself. And if you're watching this on TV, I also have a QR code up on the screen now that when you scan it with a smart device, you also can check out everything that I'm gonna show you in this video. All right, so for this next tool that I'm sure many of you have not seen, but if you have been a subscriber or viewer of the channel for really any length of time, you will recognize this tool right here. This screwdriver to me is just invaluable. It saves me a ton of time, very easy to use. And unlike most of your other electric screwdrivers, this one really, it just feels like an actual screwdriver, whereas a lot of them just feel like mini impacts or mini drills. So as you can see, when you take a look at this particular screwdriver, we've got two buttons up here on the top. If we push this lower button that's driving down, that is to tighten everything. The up button is to loosen everything. And then there's a charging port right over here on the side. I will tell you the battery life on these is really long. I have yet to run one dead, and I do quite a few projects before I do end up charging it. To change the drivers or bits, it's super easy to do. Just like with your impact, you just pull up on that and you can pull it out. On the other side is a flathead. Now, depending on which ones you get, they sometimes will come with numerous types of screwdrivers. Some of them also will have actual drivers on them that can be put onto these. This other one that I use is pretty similar to that one. Came with numerous bits. So again, just depends on the project that you have. As you can see, they're also magnetic as they don't want to stay apart. But for me personally, I really like the rounded one. To me, it just feels more like a screwdriver. And if I ever get into a situation where I've gotten it tightened down a lot, probably more so than a screwdriver should handle, I can also manually then turn this in order to tighten or loosen the screws. So if you haven't checked this out in the past or you haven't seen it before, I highly recommend you check it out now. I can pretty much guarantee you will end up, once you buy one of them, you will end up buying a couple more. All right, so next up on our list of tools you need to know about is this one right here. Now, this one looks like a non-contact voltage detector. It has a completely different function, but it is just as important. So what this tester is right here, this is actually a tester that is looking for gas leaks. Now, what most people have to do, if they even know to look for it, is a lot of times you're just taking water, putting some soap in it, and then you spray it on where you think you could possibly have a gas leak or at your gas connections. And you know, when you do that, if there's gas present, it's gonna cause that soapy water to start bubbling up. Very, very effective, but not always the most convenient. Whereas if you have a tool like this right here is gonna detect those gases, whether natural gas or propane. I use it just to check out my connections around my propane tank outside from time to time as time goes on. those connections can have gas eventually leak from them. So it's a good thing to do on a somewhat regular basis just to make sure you're not losing gas. And especially if you have any internal connections like a gas dryer, cooktop, something like that, you'll want to be checking those as well, as those are actually in your home. So really quickly, I'll show you exactly how this works. Again, very much like a non-contact voltage detector. So what I've got here is I've got my torch. I've got it hooked up to a propane tank. Just for simulation purposes, I'll show you just how sensitive this is and what it looks like when this thing actually detects that there is a gas leak. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead. I got the gas just slightly on. And as you can see, it gradually ramped up. It's showing you at what level it's detecting a gas leak or any gas that's present. The screen is red and you can hear that audible alarm going off, alerting you to the fact that there is in fact gas present there. As I pull it away, you will see the screen has returned back down to normal. I barely have the gas on at all just to try and simulate a leak as well as I possibly can. But as soon as I start just inching it a little bit closer, you start seeing those lines show up and there we're back to red and beeping again. So this is a super awesome tool. This is something that has come in handy a couple of times. And again, it's great for maintenance checkups just to make sure that any of your gas connections, they're still good, they're still sealed up tight, and you're not having any possible gas seeping into the home or just escaping, costing you money. And as you saw, super easy to use and at a pretty good price point. All right, so next up on our list of tools you really need to know about is this Klein 20-in-1 screwdriver. And I know a lot of these come in, 10-to-1, 15-to-1, however many in one, but this thing has so many functions on it and can do so many different things, even if you're not actually using the screwdriver itself. All right, so here is the Klein 20-in-1 screwdriver and impact driver set. So as you can see, we got a lot going on here. If we just focus out here on the shaft of the screwdriver, we got a bunch of different colors. We got a Phillips head bit in the top of it. What is great about this is these are also drivers. Say I'm working on HVAC is especially, or your AC unit is especially one of these areas where as a homeowner, a DIYer, where these might really come in handy on a regular basis. So if I just remove that Phillips head driver out of there, I now have it set to where I've got a 1/4-inch driver on the very end of this. So a lot of your screws on AC units are 1/4, but then on the flip side, literally, we've also got 5/16. So these are probably two of the most common screw heads that you're gonna find on an AC unit, for instance. So depending on which one we need, we'd want out here at the end. So if I need 5/16, all I gotta do is take that off, flip it over to the other side, and now I've got 5/16. But I'm just gonna go ahead, flip it back to 1/4. And then of course, as you can see, as we go down the shaft here, we've got 3/8, 7/16, 1/2, and 9/16. And something else that's really cool about this is you can then release the shaft just by depressing this at the base of the grip. The shaft comes out, and this is where it comes in where you don't need to use this. You can then grab your impact, put this into your impact, and now you're ready to drive everything, depending on what size, with your impact or your screw gun. And these are actually impact rated and ready. So any type of torque that you're gonna put on them, whether you're using a screwdriver or an impact gun like this, these things can very easily handle and are made for. But again, like I mentioned earlier, you can use different bits. And like a lot of your other screwdrivers that are out there, there's usually some sort of a storage. And here it's in the very butt of this screwdriver. All you gotta do is pull it out like so. And now you've got a ton of different types of bits and drivers at your disposal. So pretty much any type of screw head that you're gonna come across, this screwdriver is already gonna have the bit that you're gonna need, and it's gonna be very easily accessible, not having to fumble through a toolbox just to find it. All right, so next on our list of tools that you really need to know about, but probably don't, comes down to this tool right here that is made by Klein as well. And some of you may have already guessed that this does have a knife function on it, and it absolutely does, but it also comes with one that is very new and I don't believe anybody else offers. So as you can see, we've got a Klein Tools knife here, and they have a whole line of these that have so many different functions. They all have a knife on them, so these are called their flickable knives. So all you gotta do is depress that button, flick it out just like that, and now you've got a razor blade or box cutter at your disposal. They also have this little indentation right here, or area where you can also cut something down in that little notch right there, whether that would be a seat belt, or if you want to use this to try and get the insulation off of wiring, that's where a lot of people use that. But that is not what makes this knife very interesting and something that a lot of people very well might want to consider. So if I go ahead, close that knife back up, it's locked into place. We want to focus on this other end over here. So if I just take this little plastic piece out just like this, and then there's a wheel over here on the side, and I just flick it open, look at that. I just gotta lock that plastic back in place, and now we've got a scraper. So if you're doing any type of painting projects, for instance, that's where this is gonna come in really, really handy. Or if you wanna get rid of, there's caulk that needs to be gotten rid of, old caulk, your windshield got some sort of overspray. Be very careful if you're doing that though. Anyways, if you need a scraping tool, this right here is gonna do the job. And also, especially for those of you that are pros, you can see how handy this is gonna come in. You've got a knife on one side that you're gonna use on a regular basis. And then on the other side, you have this scraper tool. And so again, you don't need to go to your toolbox, try to find your scraper. You've already got it in your pocket. So this is a pretty new tool that came out from Klein. Again, they've got a bunch of different ones. For me personally, my everyday carry is this one right here. Now, this one right here, not only does it have the flickable blade, it's also got that notch there to where it can strip off insulation off wires should you choose to. I never use it for that, but I guess in a pinch that'd be nice. But on this one in particular, the reason I carry this one as one of my everyday carries is not only does it have the knife, but back here on the back, it's got a full-blown screwdriver set. But this one over here is the one I really wanted to focus on, just because I don't know of any other knives out there that also have a built-in scraper already in them. And I'm sure you can already imagine numerous projects where this particular thing would come in handy. And again, just as easy to get the blade to go away. We just open up that compartment, flick the wheel, blade goes in, lock it back in place, and now everything is secure. Again, if you just want to use the knife, pops out just like that, and then back in. So definitely highly recommend taking a look at these. They are just coming out with so many useful and very cool tools. Now, next up on our list of tools you probably didn't know about, but probably should, comes down to this right here. And this is a pair of pliers that I also use as my everyday carry. And I'll show you why that is and what makes these so different. These are the Knipex Cobra pliers. And as you can see, they are very small, easily fits in a pocket, which is a lot of times exactly where I put mine. And they really do go hand in hand very well with that Klein Tools knife that I just showed you a little while ago. But what makes these so good is not only their small size, but it really comes down to these jaws here. The difference in these jaws, they made them in such a way, they do a great job of gripping on to any nuts or bolts that you're trying to loosen or tighten. The way that they design these, the teeth, they just do a great job of latching on to whatever it is you're working on. But the way that they are when they're going in the directions that they are is once you have this set to the size that it needs to be, you can then just take this tool and you can hold it tight onto the bolt or the nut that you're working on, and it will actually work as almost a ratchet set. The teeth, the directions that they're going in, allow for these pliers to slip in one direction, but then when you go into the next direction, it will bite into whatever it is that, again, you're working on. So it's almost like a socket set in that way, and can make it a lot easier. Once it is tightened down on a nut, you don't even always have to hold these two together. You can actually just handle this back one here without really applying much pressure to the front, which is what holds it down. But once it's gripped on, that's how tight it grips on, to where you really just have to handle this back handle, loosen or tighten whatever it is, whether it's a nut or a bolt. These things are just so versatile. Again, they very easily fit in the pocket because of their size. They're lightweight. The handles have nice stippling on them to give you a really nice grip. And again, in my opinion, there's just really no better set out there than these Knipex Cobras, just because they make the job so easy. So any situations you come across, you are always ready. Definitely highly recommend these if you're somebody that likes to be prepared. All right, so next up on our list of tools that you don't know about, but you really probably should, comes down to this mechanical carpenter's pencil right here. And no, it's not like your standard pencil. So this carpenter's pencil right here will draw on just about any material that you're going to be working on any of your projects, whether it's paper, wood, metal, concrete, glass, whatever it is that you need to draw on for measurements or whatever purpose you have to make a mark. This one right here is going to be able to do that for you. Just got to push that little button or plunger down. And as you can see, we've got a yellow marker. It's not an actual marker though, kind of almost like a really hard crayon that comes out of the other side. And we'll just put it up to there. And this is what's going to mark most of your surfaces. If you haven't tried using a pencil to draw on things like metal or concrete, things of that nature, where a lot of times this will show up, your standard pencil marks will, this just makes everything so clear and pretty much guaranteed to mark on those different surfaces. So just like a pencil, you would just take it and you just make your marks. It makes a very bright yellow mark like you can see right there. So if you do very many projects at all, again, this is another tool that I really recommend you check out because it's going to save you a lot of headaches. You'll no longer have to use your standard mechanical pencils if you were using those. They work fine as long as they do, but the tips break off so easily to where you have to constantly refill them. Or if you're using an actual shop pencil like this, you know when you go to make your marks, sometimes, if it even marks at all, it can be a pain to get it to make the mark, but usually with these shop pencils, the head is so broad on them, you can't get a fine point or an exact placement where you want that mark at. It a lot of times can be off, or it's just so wide, kind of takes away from the measurement that you're trying to hit. Where these are pinpoint, and again, will show up on pretty much any surface. So again, whether you're a homeowner, DIYer, or especially a woodworker, I definitely recommend you check these out. All right, so next up on our list of tools that you don't know about, but you really probably should, come down to this hammer right here. And no, this is not your standard hammer. All right, so what makes this hammer so much different than your standard hammer? Well, this is a 20-ounce hammer, so this is definitely not your lightweight hammer. It's gonna be able to drive just about anything that you're wanting to drive. Things I really like about this hammer though, is if we look up here at the face of it, it is almost completely flat. It is squared off, and it just makes for a very forgiving and good surface to hit those nails or whatever it is that you're trying to drive and hit. So that's one thing I really like about it. Another thing I really like about it is, and you can get hammers that are like this, the claw here on the back, it's a little bit more straight, not as much curve. And then if we look back up here at the head, you see these little notches that are on the side of it. Those are also for removing any nails that you're wanting to remove. But to me, what makes this hammer is if you've ever used one and you've ever hit your finger when you're trying to get that nail started, which if you're watching right now and you're saying you've never done that, then you've either never used a hammer or you're just flat out lying. Well, this hammer has a feature on it that will allow for you to never hit your fingers again when you're trying to get a nail started. So let me just really quickly demonstrate that for you. All right, so again, if we look up here at the head where those notches are, do you see that little circle that's sitting right there? That is actually a magnet. All you gotta do, put that nail right back where I showed you on that magnet, all the way seated up at the top. All you gotta do then is take this hammer, swing down just like this, gets it started, and then you just drive it the rest of the way. Super, super easy. You'll never hit your fingers again whenever you're hammering something. And this is not the only hammer that is out there that offers that feature, but I really like this hammer. I also like the other functions that are on this hammer as far as extracting the nails from any of the boards. And like I've kind of already discussed, for whatever reason, I find myself buying a bunch of Klein tools, even though, again, I am not sponsored. All right, so next up on our list also is gonna focus on what I just showed you with that other hammer. That comes down to this device right here. And no, this is not a screw gun or a driver. Well, I guess in a way it is, but it's also gonna come in handy in some very specific spots where you currently don't have a tool that allows you to get that job done. Well, this tool right here is a hammer. And no, it is not the type of hammer where you gotta hammer it like I just showed you in the last clip. This one right here really shines in areas where you can't swing a hammer. There's not enough room, and this can be used in all the other places as well, just depending on what you're wanting to do. This will also help to save your fingers. But the way that this works is just like a hammer. we're gonna take a nail, and this up here at the top is where the nail head is gonna go inside. There'll be a light that shines right there, and then we've got a trigger right here. Now, this electronic hammer can oscillate depending on what is most comfortable for you. So I personally like it like this. I'm able to put a lot of force down on it, but if you'd rather it be like straight up and down and pushing down like that, you can have it in the up position, and then you would be trying to drive a nail like this. And then obviously down here at the bottom, this is where your battery pack goes, just like your standard drills or impacts. And there is a charging port directly on the battery itself, so you don't necessarily need to have an actual charger for it. You would just need a USB-C cord that is supplied with it. So all you gotta do is take that nail, put it wherever it is that you're wanting to put that nail in, take your electronic hammer, and then once you've got the head up in to the top of this electronic hammer up here in that hole right there, you would then want to push down and get it started just like that. And then once you'd be ready to drive this nail the rest of the way, you just put it in on top. I like to put my hand up here on the top of it and then just drive it down. And so as you can see, that nail was driven all the way down into the wood, just like it would be if you were using a standard hammer. And it did so very quickly and with ease. I didn't have any risk to my fingers at all. I'm able to get in those tight places to drive that nail. And so this is a great tool to have, especially if you're someone that's worried about hitting your fingers. Maybe you don't have great hand-eye coordination, everybody's different. Whatever the reason might be, you can see the value where something like this can bring to you. But again, for me personally, where I use this the most is in places where I can't swing a hammer, I don't have the room to. And this thing has saved me from so much frustration in those particular projects and repairs. All right, so next up on our list of tools comes down to this one right here. Just about all of us are gonna be able to relate to or wish that we had at some point, because it would have been able to alleviate a ton of irritation when it comes down to screws in particular. I'm gonna break out my board again, and I'm gonna demonstrate this for you on this screw right here and demonstrate an issue that we've all run into. So what happens so many times when we're driving these cheap screws, especially the ones that come with products that we're trying to install in our home? Well, when we go to screw these in, a lot of times they will get stuck or they can't get all the way into the wood, and they will just very easily, the heads of them, where your bit goes into, it'll start to round them out to where you're no longer able to tighten it down, or in some cases, if it's bad enough, you won't even be able to reverse it back out. So I'm gonna simulate that for us to where not only can it not screw in anymore, I'm not gonna be able to pull it back out either. All right, so as you can see, I can't drive that screw down anymore, and I've put it in reverse, and I can't get it to come out. This screw head is now completely rounded out to where it's stuck right where it's at. Well, that is where one of these screw extractors is gonna come in. And again, it varies by size as far as the head that you're using. This is a number 1, number 2, a number 3, and a number 4. I know because I've used these before that I'm gonna need the number 2 screw extractor. And then what I'll need to do is I'll need to take the end that almost looks like the threads of a screw. So I want this side exposed. So I'll go ahead and insert this into my impact. So then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead, put my screw extractor, the drill bit part, down into the head of the screw where it's rounded out. We wanna make sure that the impact gun or the drill is in reverse. So as if you were trying to remove the screw. And then once it's in place, we're just gonna push down on it with some decent force, not too much, just a little bit of force. And we're gonna run that bit in the head for just a little bit. So then all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna remove that bit from the drill or the impact. I'm gonna flip it over to the other side. So the side that looks like it's got threads on it is actually gonna go into the impact or the drill. And so now on this end, as you can see, it doesn't look like it's got threads. It actually almost looks like a self-tapping screw, but these parts right here are what are gonna then grip into that head and hopefully be able to extract it out. So again, I'm just gonna push this down into that screw head. I'm also gonna keep it in reverse. We wanna just very slowly feather the trigger. We don't wanna just go really fast. We wanna go very slowly with a good amount of torque, and hopefully it will pull that screw out. As you can see, it is slowly coming up. And now we are able to remove that screw. I'm not gonna touch it because it's probably quite hot from what I was doing earlier, wallowing out the top of it. But as you can see, just as easy as that. 2 sides of this bit, one side that has what looks like threads, which is gonna prep the surface, and then the other side that we flip it over to that then actually grips into the head of the screw and backs it out just like you saw right there. All right, so next up on the list of tools you probably don't know about, but really probably should, is this one right here. Now, this is the Milesy S50. It has genuinely saved me a ton of time and has some really great features on it that I really haven't seen out of other products like it. All right, so again, this is the Milesy Tools S50. What this is essentially, it is a laser measurement tool. Now, I've used quite a few in the past. I've used this one in particular from Bosch. It has worked really, really well, but this one has so many more features than this one does right here. And so this has really become my go-to anytime I need a measurement, because while this also has a laser that gives you measurements and it is incredibly accurate, this one right here can get all different kinds of measurements that your more standard one just cannot. So one of the big deals with this one in particular is the laser that's on it. You'll see there, it is a green laser. It is extremely bright, and I'm able to see it at very long distances, even in daylight, and on surfaces that don't have a great reflectivity to them, where a lot of your more standard lasers, you might not be able to see it. You won't know what you're exactly pointing at. With the Bosch, as you can see, it is a red laser. Obviously, if I want to get a measurement, I just have to push the button once, the laser turns on, and then if I push it again, it gives me my measurement, and that is to the tripod that's directly in front of me. It's at 1 foot 4 inches. And just to show you accuracy wise, I've got a measurement here of 1 foot 5 inches. That's to my tripod. I've got a tape measure here. And if you look, once we get to the very front edge of this laser measure, right at 17 inches, which is 1 foot 5 inches. So it's incredibly, incredibly accurate. But this is where it starts to get really impressive. If we go into the features, currently we're on a single measurement length. That's the setting where I took that first measurement at. But if we go over, you got continuous where it's always measuring. You got point to point, which I'm gonna get into next because that is super important. It can do wall area. As you can see, there are so many different things that it can measure for you and can really remove a lot of headaches. But I want to get into the point to point because it is actually my favorite feature on this thing. Okay, so the reason I love this feature so much and I actually use it the most, you can use it freehand, but in my opinion, it's way better to use a tripod. If you flip it over here to the back, you'll see there is an input there, threaded input, for where you can connect it to a tripod so that it's completely set and can't be moved. You don't have any shaking going on. You get a very accurate measurement. But all I have to do in order to use this, stand at wherever I want to be standing at, put the green laser on the first location where I want to start my measurement from, hit the green button. It's going to get the measurement from that point, from where you're at to that point. And then after a second, I'm going to move it over to the next location where I want to get a measurement to, hit the green button again, and it's going to calculate for me between those 2 points, that beginning point and that second point, what that distance is. And I'm going to tell you, I've already tested it out using a tape measure, also super, super accurate. So no more fumbling around with tape measures, having to get up on a ladder on higher places. I can get all of my measurements using this right here, and I know that they're going to be very accurate. Wherever I put that laser is where it's going to measure to. All right, so next up on our list of tools is a really weird looking one, and that's this one right here. This is one that you can pretty much take anywhere. It can be a part of your everyday carry. And in a lot of cases, I would recommend it for that exact purpose because this thing can really get you out of a pinch if visibility is an issue. So this tool right here is, again, very good for an everyday carry. Easily fits in a pocket. As you can see, it fits very easily in the palm of my hand. This right here is a 400 lumen dual light flashlight. That's a lot of power for something this size, and it also has some features on it that your standard flashlight doesn't, and can be used in some areas where a flashlight just would not work very well. So if we flip it up here to the top, you'll see right there, that is where the lenses are for the flashlight itself. As long as it's not in the lock position, it's just as easy to operate as this. There's this button that's over here on the side. All we have to do is just briefly push that button, and that light turns on to where it is basically blinding the camera. Now this is at full light or at its full 400 lumens, but this dial over here, you can adjust how bright it is. So we can go ahead and we can turn that down. Depending on how much light you need, you can go ahead and adjust that with this wheel, turn it all the way back up, When it flashes like that, it's letting you know it's at its max. Right there, we're at 400 lumens on this super, super small flashlight. Now, what this can also do, and for me personally, I don't know why a lot of people would want to do this, but if we hold this button down on the side, it changes it to a color. So right now it's at blue, but again, if we push on this wheel, we can change it purple, red, green, yellow, and pretty much everything in between. So why exactly you would want different colors, I don't know. I mean, it's cool, but if you can think of a function, let me know down in the comment section, because I can't exactly figure one out. Maybe because it won't be as bright, won't be blinding, I don't know. But if we just want to put it back to its regular flashlight mode, we just hold that button down again, let it go, and now we're back to our standard flashlight. Now, where this can really come in handy, and to where this is not like your standard flashlight, because your standard flashlight's very limited to you have to hold it in your hand and point it where you need it to. If we look up here at the head where the flashlight is, I can spin this. I can have it go any direction from here all the way to there. And so where this really comes in handy is I can not have to hold this, and I can either use this clip over here on the side, clip it onto something, or what a lot of people don't realize with these that do get them is there is a very strong magnet down here in the bottom. So if you've got somewhere where there's some metal and you need some directional light, you can just take the bottom of this, and I'll just demonstrate that really quickly with this nail. You can see it sticks to it, and it actually has quite a bit of force. But so you can use this, put it on a piece of metal, it'll hang there. You can hang it upside down, you can hang it off to the side, whatever position you need that in. And then of course, then you can fine tune where you need that light by adjusting the head in the direction that you need it in. So not only is this a flashlight, it can actually serve as a spotlight as well. A mobile spotlight that doesn't require a lot of setup. You've got a lot of brightness there with 400 lumens. Great for home emergencies, or if you got power that goes out, you can just set this thing up and it can light up pretty much an entire room. All right, so next up on our list of tools is this little guy right here. And this will actually connect to your phone. And this thing actually has so much functionality to it, can give you a lot of information on trying to figure out where you might be losing heat or air conditioning, where you might have leaks in your refrigerators, freezers, anywhere where you're trying to keep certain temperatures in or out. That's where this can come into play in helping you locate them and then being able to address them. So this little guy right here, this is made by FLIR. And this is an infrared camera. Now they make handheld ones. I personally prefer the ones that connect to your phone because you're gonna be able to do things like record with it. You're also gonna have a giant screen with high definition, and you're just gonna be able to see everything so much more clearly. And it's also a lot smaller than a big handheld item like that. Nothing wrong with those. If you prefer to just have a standalone device, those also work very, very well. I just personally prefer these ones that get connected to a phone, and they make these for not only iOS or Apple, but also for Android. So the way this works is you just take this, the camera side, you'd have it facing away from you when you insert it into the port like so. Then on your phone, you just go to the FLIR One app. It's gonna open it up. It's gonna start connecting with your camera. It's gonna give you directions. Then once it's plugged in, there's a power button on the bottom. Just push the power button. That's gonna turn it on. And as you can see, our FLIR camera is now up and operational. So as you can see, I'm taking a look at my hand right here. And not only is it showing me on the screen like where the hot spots are, but it's also showing me what the temperature is of that particular spot. I said hot spot, it can be a hot spot, it can be cold spots. A lot of times where I use this, if it's in the winter time, I'm using it around my doors, my windows. I want to see where that cold air is coming in so that I can either put a better seal in there or recognize that there's no seal there at all. Or same thing with a refrigerator or freezer, garage door, whatever it is, you can find your hot and cold areas and then be able to address them so you're not losing money in your heating and your cooling, and you end up using a lot less electricity. It's also gonna pinpoint you in areas where maybe you need more insulation or where there's no insulation at all. But as you can see here on the screen, you also have this button right here. This is to take a picture of whatever it is you have it focused on, and then you can also screen record with that record button right there. And it's gonna record it right into your photos on your phone. So everything will be extremely accessible. So if that's something you see value in, I would definitely take a look at this, because while it's not exactly the cheapest thing that you can purchase, it will pay for itself over time, depending on how bad your situation is, how much of your air is escaping or letting in air that you don't want to come in, just will depend on how quickly it's paid off, but it will eventually pay for itself once you're able to identify and address those areas. So again, like I mentioned earlier, like always for your convenience, I'll have links for this along with all of the other tools that we talked about in this video. I'll have links for them down in the description down below so that when you click on them, it will take you directly to whatever it is you're wanting to check out. And again, if you're on TV, I also have a QR code up on the screen now. All you gotta do is scan it with one of your smart devices, and you also can check out each one of these tools for yourself. Now, just really quickly before you go, while this was a really great list of tools that I'm willing to bet most of you didn't know about, or at least I think it's a great list, let me know down in the comments what you think. There are numerous projects where these can be put to use. If you'd be interested in learning more about what those projects are, where these tools can be used, or if you'd like more ideas and list of things like this, maybe not necessarily tools, maybe things around the house, there are some other videos I will be doing very soon, just like this one, bringing some attention to some products that as homeowners and DIYers, we can all very much benefit from. If any of that would be of interest to you, I will post links to some other videos on the screen now. Whichever one of those videos interests you the most, all you have to do is click on it and it will take you directly to it. But I hope that you found value in this video, and if you did, if you could do me a huge favor, hit that thumbs up button right down below. And of course, if you have any questions or comments still, you can leave those down in the comment section. I'm Adam with How to Home, and I'll catch you in one of those next videos.